Chicago is one of the best cities in the world, known all over the place for all kinds of very positive reasons. Michael Jordan, pizza, hot dogs, the skyline, the beach. List goes on and on of all the reasons why somebody might want to live here and why I indeed do enjoy living here. But however, if you listen to the news or listen to the politicians for long enough, you will start to be introduced to a different version of Chicago, one that is perhaps befitting of a nickname like Chirac, one where there are just criminals on every street corner running amok and you are unsafe anywhere you go. So what's up with that? Is that true? Is Chicago safe? Is Chicago dangerous? What should you be paying attention to and what should you not? These are the types of questions that I am going to attempt to get into in this video. My name is Jake Lyons, realtor right here in Chicago with App Properties and founder of the ChicagoHomeSource.com, bringing you well-informed, data-driven content. And as a realtor, I need to inform you right off the bat that my hands are pretty much tied behind my back as far as how in-depth I can go on this topic, because fair housing laws forbid me from saying anything that might persuade somebody from choosing one area over another based on things like demographics or even crime stats or anything like that. So you will not hear me citing any kind of statistics or going into what areas are good or what areas are bad based on any kind of crime or anything like that. Ultimately, those things depend on so many variables, and the most important ones being what you ultimately choose as being good or bad. I cannot make that decision for you, and honestly, that's the way it should be. But the elephant in the room has to be addressed. I'm from a town in Indiana, and I know that every time I talk to somebody from back home, all they do is say, oh, the headlines say that so-and-so happened in Chicago. Are you safe? Are you okay? You know, all these kinds of things. In fact, true story, a couple years ago, my wife and I were in Israel, visiting Israel in the old city of Jerusalem. And if you've ever been to Israel, old city of Jerusalem in particular, you know that it is very militaristic because actual war can break out there pretty much any time. So it's really no big deal to see like soldiers walking around and with AR-15s just casually. And we were standing in line for one of the attractions there, as you do, and struck up a conversation with one of these soldiers. And, you know, he heard my accent. He's like, oh, you're from America. Where are you from? I said, Chicago. First thing he says is like, oh, Chicago. Pop, pop, pop. Chicago. As he's carrying an AR-15. And I was just like, what? How is that even a thing? So this is out there. It needs to be addressed. And that is what I'm going to try to do. So let's go ahead and get into it. So for better and for worse, probably mostly for worse, Chicago and crime actually are very intertwined going back 100 years, 150 years, pretty much since the beginning of the history of Chicago. You guys probably know Al Capone. Al Capone, one of the biggest, most notorious mobsters of the whole Prohibition era, arguably the defining mobster and character of that whole era, was based out of Chicago. Dillinger, one of the most notorious bank robbers and criminals of the 20th century, did a lot of his work in Chicago and was actually shot in Chicago. It goes as far as we even have crime bus tours that go around the city and just go to all these different little sections of town and different landmarks where things happen, where like the St. Valentine's Day Massacre happened when Al Capone and his cronies shot up a bunch of people and made international headlines. So it's hard to dislodge the history and the essence and the culture of Chicago from crime. A factor that cannot be ignored, couldn't possibly be ignored, is the fact that Chicago does have a very ugly history of racial discrimination and segregation due to redlining and other very racist policies that were practiced throughout the 20th century that still impact the city today, as the city still is very segregated racially and socioeconomically. And there are for sure areas, significant areas of the city that have lesser economic and educational opportunities, and high crime rates tend to follow these kinds of policies, and we are very much still dealing with the fallout and repercussions of these today. So unfortunately, for a very large percentage of Chicagoans, it probably does feel like every day is a war zone and unsafe, and all of those things that I mentioned earlier, because that's the reality that they face. And obviously this reflects poorly on the entire city, but that's kind of us sowing what we have been reaping for the last few decades, generations, going back just about as far back as the city goes. Not to diminish this awful reality that so many of our neighbors do indeed face every day, but just to address on the city as a whole, let's just say that you do see a headline where 30 people got shot over the weekend. And you will see headlines like that, you know. That headline could be equally true if it stated 3 million Chicagoans did not get shot this weekend. Are still pretty decent odds, right? Chicago is the third biggest city in America, so of course the raw number of violent crimes that happen is going to be high. Again, I can't cite the specific stats, but I would encourage you, if you're looking into this yourself, to look up per capita crime stats as it relates to how we compare to other cities. You might be surprised. So here are some ways that you can do your own research if you are indeed looking for a safe place to live in Chicago. First off, you can go to any of the thousands of websites out there that offer statistics on these kinds of things. Neighborhoodscout.com is a pretty good one. Honestly, if you just Google crime stats, I mean, there's so many websites that do this kind of thing and have all kinds of heat maps and things like that that you can get into. Goodvibes.com is a pretty good resource. So is a website called niche.com or niche.com, however you want to say that. Do keep in mind a little bit that those websites, a lot of the websites, when they're saying like how a neighborhood compares, they're actually comparing it to the average. So like might be a neighborhood, for instance, where they give D+ on crime because they're comparing it to the national average. Just for fun, I just looked up what is the most average city in America in terms of just population, and I don't even know what all else goes into this, but I just Googled most average city in America and it turned out to be Lynchburg, Virginia. So you tell me, how similar do you think Chicago and Lynchburg, Virginia are? Do you think those are reasonable cities to compare to each other in anything? Probably not, right? So take those stats, just know what you're reading, I guess, is kind of the bottom line of what I'm trying to get at there. But those are pretty good sites in terms of, you know, a lot of them will have people going in there and talking about it, you know, kind of giving them their own ratings and all that kind of stuff. So it's still a pretty good place to go just to see how the people who actually live there, what they're actually saying about the places. But honestly, if you're actually around and physically present in any kind of way, by far the best, most effective way to know if the area that you're looking at is safe or good vibey is to actually go there, walk the streets, go to a police station. The police station, the people sitting there, they will tell you how things are there for sure. Go into a corner store, go into the gas stations, talk to the attendants, just talk to people walking their dogs, just talk to people. Drive around at different times of the day and different days of the week. You know, there are just kind of all kinds of little common sense things like that that you can do if you have the time and if you're actually around just to kind of get the lay of the land. If you're not, then I would refer to those websites that I told you about and just kind of see what people are saying about the areas. And once you do all that and you've done your own research and you know what neighborhood you want to live in, reach out to me. I can help you find that home in that area that you are looking at. I cannot tell you where to go, but you can tell me where you want to go and I can help you get there. Feel free to contact me directly via any of the contact information that you see around here, or you can schedule a free consultation in the Calendly link that will be somewhere below as well. Visit thechicagohomesource.com, a very great website indeed for anything Chicago real estate related. You can find all available properties there and a whole slew of other awesome features. I hope you got some good value out of this video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up, give me a like, give me a subscribe, a follow, whatever the thing is that indicates that you like this and you want more of it. And that's all I have for now. Thanks.